National Public Radio, NPR, where the news is what we say is the news.
Voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and Jon show, yeah. It's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and Jon show, the finest in the land.
Man, Jon, we've got a lot to live up to there when they say the finest in the land. I don't know. It's going to be tough to live up to that intro, right?
I think it's undisputed. I don't know who would dispute that, Brad. And if so, if you want to vote against us, go stand in the line for 4 hours.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll talk about that. There's the hearing this morning at 9 o'clock in St. Charles County. All sorts of crazy stuff with the early voting. Okay, but it's Friday. We start off with our beautiful barbershop intro. And then, of course, we have this.
Time for the Jon Combest Top 3.
I like the way those polka guys say Combest. Not Combest.
Yes, it's very ethnic because we're so diverse.
Right. That is Jon Combest you hear right there. He's the guy that for 23 plus years, every single morning, he puts together the list of all the big important stories you should be aware of in the state of Missouri. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're sad, government, all sorts of different things like that. We start the show off with the top 3, and we start off with this guy.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what does he do?
Now on with the countdown.
Does the countdown he starts off with?
In third place,
Brad, it's rare that I come to you and say, you have to read this article. It's kind of like when you come to me and say, I have to see a movie. And I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to see that movie.
You never do.
But in this case, Brad, you have to read the story. The question asked in the Post-Dispatch today by reporter Austin Hughley, the headline is, did St. Louis send grant money to fake businesses?
And the
Brad,
answer
I'm going
is...
to give you a spoiler here. The answer is yes.
I was going to say the answer is yes.
I'm sorry, Brad?
I was going to say the answer is yes, right?
The answer is yes, right? And I mean, to no one's surprise, again, the Post-Dispatch has been on top of this from the very beginning. And folks will recall, because we've talked about it before, a whole bunch of pandemic grant money came into urban areas. St. Louis said they were going to take that money and spend it to revitalize the north side of St. Louis. The south side, because there's still some, old people that are not have a lot of melanin in their skin. You know what I'm saying? So instead of sending it down there to South City, let's send it to North City. So Austin Hughley has been going through and actually checking out what's going on with these grants. You'll recall that the last time we talked about this, Brad, the St. Louis Development Corporation said, look, we know that some of these grants might appear to be a little bit shady, but money is not actually going out yet until we're able to verify that these are real businesses. Well, it turns out, unfortunately for the St. Louis Development Corporation, Austin Hughley went out and fact-checked that statement. And it turns out that several checks have already been cut. So Austin went around and did some good shoe leather journalism, Brad. Just kind of knocked on some doors, wanted to kick the tires, see if these businesses are real. My favorite example that he gives in the story is a company called Urban Pyramids. And boy, if you were coming up with a scheme and you wanted to give it an appropriate name, Urban Pyramids would be a pretty good name for your company. According to the application, Brad, Urban Pyramids, it was going to develop the economic, physical, and mental health of the community. I'll cut to the chase. Austin shows up. There's nothing up there on the second floor on Union Avenue, Brad. Union Boulevard. Austin even talked to the folks that are down below and said, hey, have you guys seen anybody upstairs? Nope, nothing going on upstairs. But guess what, Brad? They got a cool $20,000. So who knows? Will they ever do anything with the money or not? Probably not, right, Brad?
John, this is the interesting thing you bring up because of the fact that hats off to Mr. Hughley because of the fact that you just put it right there. Shoe leather journalism. Sometimes, and this is the fallacy of the modern day of electronic journalism, you can sit at your computer and you can look at Google Street View, you can do all this kind of crazy stuff. But sometimes, if you get in your car and you drive someplace and you walk in the door, you find out things you will never find on the internet, if you know what I'm saying.
That's exactly right. So Austin talked to a woman who was next door to this building, and her quote was, "Ain't nothing operating up there." Now, that's the kind of thing that you wouldn't get from Google Street View. And then also to Austin's credit, he asked question to the St. Louis Development Corporation, like, "Hey, I went by there, and there's actually not anything up there." And they said, "Oh, wait. Actually, it looks like they moved to a house on Montclair Avenue. They're going to be there, so don't worry about it." And then Austin actually went to the house at Montclair Avenue, and a woman lives there who just moved there from Milwaukee. She says she has no idea about some kind of a business called Urban Pyramids. Doesn't even exist, Brad. Can you believe that?
So she just moved from Milwaukee, and she literally said she has no idea what Urban Pyramids is?
Yeah, she has no idea, never heard of it. She says occasionally, though, bill collectors come to the door looking for Urban Pyramids, but she tells them, "Look, I just came here from Milwaukee. I have no idea why people are coming to my front door." And one more I would mention, too. Austin found another business, Brad. $20,000 went to a place called the Boomerang Store, which may or may not have been named after the classic 1992 Eddie Murphy film, which I was a big fan of. But anyway, Austin went kind of snooping around there. They got 20 grand because what they're going to fix, Brad, they're going to fix the food desert. Urban people would be lined up for kale smoothies if they just had a little cash to start a store. Austin went looking around, and every time he went there on a series of visits, gates were locked, and all that could be seen through a darkened window were the backs of potato chip bags. You think those might have been Red Hot Riplets there, Brad?
Yeah, the Luther Burden version, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you and I are certified endorsers of those. Anyway, Austin says in this piece, most neighbors interviewed said they weren't aware of any food in the store, despite its purported founding in 2019. So examples abound here, Brad. And we literally don't have time to go through all the examples that Austin calls out here. So it's just amazing. And then before we'll put Austin Hughley over one more time here, before we do it too much, we don't want to praise the Post-Dispatch too much, right, Brad?
Well, I don't know. I'm all for this kind of journalism, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, exactly. We need more of it. And so, the beauty of this is that you do some original investigative reporting, and then you go to the Development Corporation, you say, "What's the deal?" And then they say, "Oh, no, I know it looks bad, but we haven't actually given any money out, and we're gonna check this stuff." And then you check, and they actually have given the money out. And then you ask them for an alibi, and they give you an alibi about some house on some business relocating. And then you knock on the door, and there's no business there. It's some woman renting a house. So it's just amazing, Brad. And Austin Hughley points out that Eric Schmidt recently has gone to the Treasury Department and is like, "Look, if you got all these hijinks going on with federal money, it's your responsibility, the federal government. You have to keep an eye on this money, this taxpayer money that you're just dumping into areas for, quote, pandemic help." Anyway, if you and I want to go down, Brad, and maybe get a good, maybe we want to get some fresh broccoli or something in a good urban area, maybe we'll go down to Boomerang.
The sad thing about this, there's a double sad part about this. A, they're ripping off the government. But B, these programs are supposed to help people, and more importantly, remember all the scam with the one lady was supposedly doing the lunches and things like that for school
Yeah, the
kids.
school lunches. 2 ladies, actually.
Right.
Brad, but I know the one you're talking about, yeah.
I'm going like, okay, not only are they ripping off the government, they're screwing the kids who are supposed to be getting, meals out of this deal. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's like, how sad is that?
Yeah, and so I agree with you. And also, you and I poked fun at the whole reparations movement and the silliness with taking money and just giving out. Actually, Brad, you would have been better to take all this money instead of giving it to fake businesses and say, who are the top 1,000 families that need a little bit of money? And here's $20. For every one of these grants, you could have given 1,000 families $20 more to buy lunch meat this week and bread. But instead it's going to people that are just manufacturing fake businesses.
You're talking literally every week they'd get an extra $20, so they'd get like $80 a month to be able to spend on like groceries. And things like that, right?
or whatever. The point is even though we poke fun at just giving money out to people, it would still be a better use of resources than this kind of game.
Well, John, through the years, I've done some stupid things like if they say, okay, we've got this program, we're going to spend $10 million, they're going to help, let's say 1,000 families or something like that. Okay, you just take a calculator and you put in 10 million divided by 1,000 and it comes out to whatever number. They just could write him a check, you know what I mean? But instead, by the time the $10 million gets through the government expenses and stuff like that, they end up with $3.52. You know what I mean? It's to the point where just write the damn check.
Yeah, cut the check. That's right.
And here you got a guy like Elon Musk who's giving away $100,000. No, is it $1 million a day?
Hey. That's election interference, Brad. Don't you go promoting those conspiracies, you election conspiracist. Hey, when it comes to elections, Brad, I don't know. I think we should move into story number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
They say the grass is not always greener, Brad. And in this case, it could apply to Kansas City. Now, you have been on top of this story because you followed a lot of news coverage about the hubbub in St. Charles County about the lack of voting places to go vote early and the long lines. Well, today the Kansas City Star has a thorough piece by a gentleman named Kason Bayless, and he looked at all of the questions about what the heck is going on in the Kansas City area for early voting. Now Kason's story, much like Austin's story, asks a question, and you can guess the answer, Brad. It says, Missourians voting earlier seeing long lines. Should officials have been more prepared? What do you think, Brad?
Well, the thing that still gets me is the fact that, we did the math the other day. What was it, 14 early voting locations in St. Louis County. St. Louis County has like a mill population. St. Charles County has, now probably 435,000. They have 2 locations. Come on. And they're both within like 5 miles of each other.
Yeah, it's absurdity in St. Charles County. We touched on that a little bit yesterday, but I hadn't heard much, Brad, about what was going on in Kansas City. So Kason Bayless does a good job here going through. He says he talks to state lawmakers, election authorities and voters. And Brad, at least 2 people in the story, including the incoming Speaker of the House, a guy named Jonathan Patterson, talk about the fact that when they went to vote, their wait at early voting centers in Kansas City was between 3 and 4 hours.
No kidding.
So Patterson says, to heck with it. I'm just going to vote on Election Day. I'm going to bite the bullet and just, stand in line and roll the dice on Election Day. But there's an older gentleman that Kason Bayless talked to who did the same kind of thing that I did, which is he went by there twice. And I did vote yesterday. We could probably get back to that. But anyway, this piece in the Kansas City Star highlights how messed up things are in the Kansas City area. And Brad, the excuses, if you will, that you hear from Kansas City are pretty much the same thing you're hearing here in St. Charles County with, well, boy, we just had no idea there would be so many people. And also the additional element is that Kansas City is using the excuse, alibi, however you want to look at it, of the fact that they didn't think they would be able to staff a whole bunch of polling places. Now, to your point, Brad, St. Louis County managed to find election workers for these early voting places. But the point is, Brad, not what we are seeing in St. Charles County is also seen in other large metropolitan areas.
You know, the whole thing's going to be interesting because of the fact that for a long time, this is the thing that the Republicans complained about when they started, doing all these things, especially in the 2020 election where they changed a lot of things because of COVID. But the aspect of this is that the Republicans for a long time had dug in their heels and said, the proper way to vote is to vote on Election Day. And within the last year or so, the Republicans have been preaching, hey, you know what? The Dems are voting early. We're going to vote early, too. Do you think that might be part of it, that there's all sorts of people who've never voted early who've shown up, and that's how the election authorities got flat-footed? They just had no idea that this many people was going to show up like this?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think there's any sort of conspiracy around it. I just think that they were unprepared.
Yeah.
So that's not an excuse. It just means that they're unprepared.
Well, you have personal experience. We'll talk about that in B Block, you voting in St. Louis County. I went out and personally did a little on-the-street reporting yesterday out at 70 and 79. What a mess. I have to tell you. I'm going like, I can't believe this. And it's like that every damn day. Okay, time for number one.
The number one.
You might want to shed a tear, Brad, because this might be the last time that we get a chance to cover the Hawley-Kunce versus Josh Hawley campaign. Last night, Halloween night, Josh Hawley and Hawley-Kunce shared a stage. It was moderated by St. Louis television station KTVI. Now, in disclosure, I didn't watch the debate. Obviously, I had a whole bunch of Halloween stuff going on all day long. But I would suggest folks read Jason Rosenbaum's piece today. I have 3 pieces up about the debate. Nothing new. No ground was broken. Hawley-Kunce is weighing in on January 6th, that whole Capitol Party thing that went on, the dangerous and scary insurrection. And then Josh Hawley's making some quips about how brave the reporters are to share a stage with Hawley-Kunce after he shot one of them. And the only really interesting nugget that I saw in any of these stories came from Jason Rosenbaum. And Rosenbaum pointed out that Hawley-Kunce brought in Jon Hamm yesterday. Jon Hamm came back to St. Louis, and he was at Del Mar Hall. That's right next to the pageant and down in Crimeville. And Jon Hamm was there, and, I'm sure doing some kind of tough talking thing. Although I think Jon Hamm uses his real voice and not some sort of fake election year accent. Anyway, Brad, probably the last time that we're going to get a chance to talk about Josh Hawley's cakewalk.
Once again, I'm Brad the underdog. Okay, if I were going to vote, I think I'd vote for Hawley-Kunce because of the fact that at least he doesn't wear pirate shoes and tight jeans. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, but have you seen his T-shirts?
Well, he the guy's built. Have you seen that? I don't think I'd want to get in a fight with the guy. I think he'd probably whip the daylights out of you. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I would probably end up bloodied, but I don't think that's by his hands.
Okay, well, I won't touch that.
Well, I mean, if we were at a shooting range, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm talking fisticuffs. I'm not talking shooting AR-15s at steel plates at 10 yards.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I mean, he's an older guy, but yeah, at a certain point when you're an older guy, not being a lard ass becomes a status symbol. Like not being grossly overweight and being able to look down at a urinal and see where you're aiming. That becomes a status symbol.
John,
in that regard, sure, Hawley-Kunce is in great shape.
John, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you so much.
I wasn't thinking of you standing at a urinal or any other man, frankly, but
Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by Jon Hamm's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search Jon Combest. That's Combest, Jon Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?